They thought the humans would be easy prey. They were wrong. Vortis, High Counselor of the once mighty Galactic Empire, surveyed the somber faces assembled in the grand chambers. The Empire was in ruin, its fleets shattered, its worlds under siege. Vortis called the emergency meeting to order, his voice echoing with disbelief and despair. "We first encountered the humans 50 cycles ago," Vortis began, "a primitive race confined to a single world called Earth. Their technology was crude, their weapons laughable. The Council agreed they posed no threat. We moved to conquer them, to subjugate them as we had so many others. But we failed to see the danger lurking within the human spirit." Vortis recounted the rise of Jeffrey Kennedy, the brilliant human commander who rallied Earth's defenses. Kennedy's unorthodox strategies caught the Empire off guard. At Proxima Centauri, his surprise attack crippled the Imperial fleet. On Eridani, human guerrillas held off the Empire's legions for months in bloody street-to-street fighting. Angry murmurs rippled through the Council. The avian Karishi delegate demanded a swift counterattack to crush the humans. But others, like the insectoid Zrixians, urged caution. The Empire had underestimated humanity once already, with catastrophic results. Vortis slammed his fist on the podium, his voice tinged with bitterness and reluctant respect. The Empire's arrogance had blinded them, he admitted. Centuries of unchallenged dominance had bred complacency. They had grown weak, their warrior spirit dulled by decadence and greed. In contrast, humanity's strengths had been forged in the crucible of hardship. Where the Empire saw primitives, the humans saw potential. Where the Empire relied on raw power, the humans wielded ingenuity and grit. In the Empire's hubris, they had sown the seeds of their own destruction. As the debate raged, the truth became clear. The Empire faced a threat unlike any before. More than just a military defeat, the war with humanity threatened the Empire's very identity, its manifest destiny to rule the stars. The Council was divided on what to do next. Some wanted to seek peace with the humans. Others hungered for revenge. Vortis adjourned the meeting, knowing the choices made here would shape the galaxy's future in ways none could yet comprehend. For a greater peril was stirring in the abyss of space, an ancient threat that would test humanity and the Empire alike. To survive, they would need to stand together, or fall alone. Their greatest mistake, Vortis reflected grimly, wasn't just challenging the humans. It was failing to see what the upstart species might one day become, the galaxy's last best hope against the coming darkness. The glittering towers of Imperial Center shone in the morning sun as Captain Zorax's scout ship descended through wisps of cloud. Zorax leaned forward in the command chair, his dark eyes intent on the blue-green sphere growing larger on the display. Around him, the bridge crew worked in tense silence, preparing for their crucial mission. "Status report," Zorax barked, his feathered crest flaring. "All systems nominal," replied his first officer, a lithe Zrixian named Krytox. "Cloaking field is stable. We should be undetectable to the humans' primitive sensors." Zorax nodded, but a flicker of unease stirred in his gut. The humans had proven surprisingly resilient in the face of the Empire's initial incursions. Their technology was crude, yes, but they wielded it with a cunning and ferocity that had caught the Empire off guard. As the ship entered low orbit, a sudden chime sounded from the sensor station. The operator, a young Brunali, looked up in alarm. "Captain, we're being hailed. The humans, they've detected us." Zorax surged to his feet, disbelief warring with a growing sense of dread. "Impossible! Our cloaking technology is centuries beyond anything the humans possess." But the truth was undeniable. On the main screen, a human face appeared, a male with piercing blue eyes and a confident bearing. "Greetings, Imperial vessel," the human said, his voice calm and measured. "I am Jeffrey Kennedy, commander of Earth's defenses. We've been expecting you." Zorax's mind raced, trying to make sense of this unexpected development. How could the humans have detected them? What other surprises did they have in store? He composed himself, drawing on decades of Imperial discipline. "I am Captain Zorax of the Galactic Empire. We come in peace to open a dialogue between our civilizations." It was a lie, of course. Zorax's true mission was to gather intelligence, to probe Earth's weaknesses and pave the way for the Empire's conquest. But Kennedy seemed to see through the deception, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Of course, Captain. We welcome the opportunity for peaceful negotiations. Please, join me and my delegation on the surface. We have much to discuss." Zorax hesitated, every instinct screaming at him to flee, to report back to the Empire that the humans were far more capable than they had believed. But he knew his duty. He had to see this through, to learn all he could about this enigmatic species. "Very well, Commander Kennedy. We accept your invitation." As the Imperial shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, Zorax couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into a trap. But it was too late to turn back now. The fate of the Empire, perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. On the surface, Kennedy and his team watched the Imperial craft land with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. They had laid their cards on the table, revealing a glimpse of their true capabilities. Now the real game could begin. A high-stakes dance of diplomacy and deception, with the future of two civilizations at stake. In the Grand Council chambers of Imperial Center, the mood was somber as news of Zorax's report spread like wildfire. The Empire had made a grave miscalculation, dismissing the humans as primitives to be easily crushed. Now they faced a rival with the potential to challenge their dominance like no other. As the debate raged, Admiral Zala watched from the shadows, her mind whirring with possibilities. The humans were a puzzle, one that could hold the key to the Empire's survival, or its destruction. She would unravel their secrets one way or another, and in doing so, she would shape the destiny of the galaxy itself. Admiral Zala strode into the dimly lit council chambers, her scaled tail swishing behind her. The gathered delegates fell silent as she approached the central podium, her piercing gaze sweeping across the assembly. "Esteemed counselors," she began, her voice low and controlled, "we can no longer afford to underestimate the humans. I propose a covert infiltration mission to gather intelligence on their society and capabilities." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Vortis leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "And how do you propose to accomplish this, Admiral?" Zala's mandibles clicked in a predatory smile. "I have assembled an elite team led by Commander Raxus. They will pose as refugees, integrating into a major human settlement on Earth." The council erupted into debate. Some praised the plan's audacity, while others warned of the risks. In the end, Zala's proposal was approved by a narrow margin. Weeks later, on the outskirts of New Jakarta, Commander Raxus surveyed the sprawling human metropolis. His team had successfully established their cover as refugees from a war-torn planet. Now, the real work began. "Azara," he subvocalized into his neural comm, "report." The Zerixian spy's silky voice filled his mind. "I've made contact with General Marcus Orwell. He's cautious but intrigued. I'll have him eating out of my hand soon enough." Raxus acknowledged her update, then turned his attention to the bustling streets below. Humans of all shapes and sizes hurried about their business, their technology a curious blend of the familiar and the alien. As he observed, Raxus's mind drifted back to the pivotal battle of Eridani Prime. He had been a junior officer then, watching in disbelief as the human fleet, led by the infamous Jeffrey Kennedy, sprang their devastating trap. The Imperial Armada had arrived in full force, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they found themselves caught in a deadly crossfire as hidden missile platforms suddenly activated. A small group of human ships drew the Empire's attention, only to reveal themselves as bait when the main fleet unleashed a barrage of advanced plasma torpedoes. Raxus remembered the sickening lurch as the Imperial flagship listed, its hull breached in a dozen places. On the ground, human guerrillas melted into the urban landscape, striking with terrifying precision before vanishing once more. The commander shook off the memory, refocusing on his mission. They couldn't afford another such defeat. His team had already made a startling discovery. The humans had not only reverse-engineered Imperial technology, but had pushed beyond it in ways that defied explanation. "Sir," one of his operatives interrupted, "I've uncovered references to a top-secret human project, something called Prometheus. It appears to involve an energy source unlike anything we've ever seen." Raxus's eyes narrowed. Investigate further, but carefully. We can't risk exposing ourselves now. As night fell over the city, Raxus couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. General Orwell had assigned an intelligence operative, Agent Adam Callister, to keep an eye on the refugees. The man was sharp, perhaps too sharp for comfort. In the shadows of a nearby alley, Agent Callister observed the aliens' movements with growing suspicion. Something about these refugees didn't add up, and he was determined to uncover the truth, whatever it takes. High above the Earth, in the vast emptiness of space, a strange energy signature pulsed briefly before vanishing. Neither human nor Imperial sensors detected it, but its presence marked the beginning of a threat that would soon engulf them all. The Grand Council chamber erupted into chaos. Admiral Zala's scaled fist slammed onto the polished obsidian table, her eyes blazing with righteous fury. "We have tolerated these humans for far too long," she roared, her voice cutting through the cacophony. "Commander Raxus's mission has revealed their true nature, deceitful, dangerous, and utterly incompatible with galactic civilization." Murmurs of agreement rippled through her faction. The Brunali delegates nodded vigorously, their bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with agitation. Vortis rose to his feet, his multiple arms spread wide in a placating gesture. "We must not act rashly, esteemed colleagues. Our losses thus far pale in comparison to what open conflict might bring." "Losses?" Zala spat the word like venom. "You speak of losses when one of our own, Azara, has been captured by these savages? Who knows what torment she endures even now?" The chamber doors burst open, and all eyes turned to see Commander Raxus stumble in. His normally pristine uniform was torn and stained, his face haggard. "Counselors," he gasped, "I bring grave news from Earth." Raxus recounted the disastrous turn of events: Azara's capture, the human operative Adam Callister's cunning trap, and their narrow escape. With each word, Zala's expression grew darker, more vindictive. "You see," she hissed, "this is the true face of humanity. They must be crushed, utterly and without mercy." The council chamber devolved into near violence. Zala's Brunali loyalists squared off against Vortis's multi-species allies, mandibles clicking and claws unsheathing. Vortis's voice cut through the din. "Enough!" he thundered. "There is something you must know." A hush fell over the assembly as Vortis revealed the shocking truth. Humanity's technological capabilities had been deliberately understated from the beginning. He produced holographic evidence showing human ships equipped with reverse-engineered warp drives and energy weapons, dating back to their first encounter. The council exploded into pandemonium. Accusations of treason flew at Vortis from all sides. "Why?" Zala demanded, her voice dripping with contempt. "Why conceal this vital intelligence?" Vortis met her gaze unflinchingly. "To prevent exactly this, a destructive escalation that could doom us all." As the factions realigned in real time, processing this game-changing information, a shadow detached itself from a darkened alcove. A blade flashed, arcing towards Vortis's exposed back. In a blur of motion, a Zrixian bodyguard intercepted the would-be assassin. The council chamber erupted into chaos once more as security forces swarmed in. Amidst the bedlam, Vortis's mind raced. The humans were more formidable than even he had anticipated. And now, with Zala pushing for all-out war, the future of the stars hung in the balance. In a quiet corner of the chamber, an aide whispered urgently into Vortis's ear. Reports were coming in of an anomalous energy signature detected on the galactic rim, a possible harbinger of the threat they all feared. As guards escorted the stunned counselors to safety, Vortis knew that the decisions made in the coming days would shape the course of galactic history. The humans, with their mysterious Project Prometheus, might hold the key to survival or to utter annihilation. The council chamber shook as Vortis's revelation reverberated through the assembly. Admiral Zala's eyes narrowed to slits, her scaled fingers curling into fists. "Traitor!" she hissed, her voice cutting through the rising cacophony. "You've doomed us all with your cowardice." Vortis stood his ground, his multiple arms spread wide. I acted to preserve peace, to prevent—" His words were drowned out as Zala's Brunali loyalists surged forward, mandibles clicking and claws unsheathing. In an instant, the Zrixian delegates formed a protective ring around Vortis, their own natural weapons at the ready. The chamber erupted into chaos. Counselors scrambled for cover as the two factions faced off, the air thick with tension and the promise of violence. "Stand down!" Zala roared, her tail lashing behind her. "By imperial decree, I order the immediate arrest of Vortis for high treason." A Zrixian diplomat, his iridescent scales shimmering with agitation, called back, "You have no authority here, Admiral. The Council will decide Vortis's fate, not your personal vendetta." The standoff intensified as both sides called for reinforcements. The chamber doors burst open, admitting squads of heavily armed security forces. Half moved to support Zala, while the others took up positions around the Zrixian contingent. Just as the first energy weapons began to charge, a priority alert klaxon blared through the chamber. All eyes turned to the central holo display as it flickered to life, showing a map of the galactic rim. A young Brunali officer, his face pale, stepped forward. "Multiple Imperial outposts have gone dark, sir. They reported strange energy readings and unknown ship configurations before we lost contact." The display zoomed in, showing a cascade of red warning indicators spreading along the galactic edge. Vortis and Zala exchanged a look of mutual concern, their conflict momentarily forgotten. Before anyone could react, another alert sounded. The officer's voice quavered as he reported, "We're receiving distress calls from refugee fleets in the outer systems. They're just disappearing, sir. No trace." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Vortis stepped forward, his voice grave. "It seems the existential threat I warned about has arrived. We face an enemy beyond our comprehension." As if in response to his words, the holo display flickered and changed. A new figure materialized, a towering, four-armed female alien with skin like polished obsidian. Her voice resonated with otherworldly power as she spoke. "I am Empress Zyrax of the Zarchan Imperium. Your pitiful civilizations have drawn our attention with your clumsy attempts to harness the power of the slipstream. Know that we are the true harvesters, and your galaxy now belongs to us. Surrender, and you may yet serve a purpose in the new order. Resist and be annihilated like the foolish races who stood before us." The message ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Vortis seized the moment, his voice ringing out with unexpected strength. "Counselors, we stand at the precipice of annihilation. Our only hope lies in unity, not just among ourselves, but with those we once called enemies. I propose an immediate alliance with humanity to face this common threat." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber, but Zala's eyes blazed with fury. In a blur of motion, she drew her sidearm and fired at Vortis. The energy bolt sizzled past his head as Zrixian guards tackled him to the ground. "Traitors, all of you," Zala snarled. "I'll not see the Empire brought low by cowards and primitives. To me, loyal soldiers of the Imperium." A third of the security forces rallied to her side as she stormed out of the chamber. Alarms blared throughout the station as Zala's rebellion spread, threatening to tear the Empire apart from within, even as an unstoppable enemy approached from without. Vortis struggled to his feet, knowing that every second counted. He turned to a communications officer, his voice urgent. "Send a priority message to Earth. We need to speak with Commander Kennedy immediately." As the officer complied, Vortis gazed out at the star-filled expanse beyond the council chamber. Somewhere out there, the vanguard of the Zarchan Imperium was advancing, drawn by the resonant frequencies of humanity's Prometheus drive. The fate of all civilizations now hung in the balance, with former enemies forced to become unlikely allies against an implacable foe. The quantum comm link crackled to life, its holographic display materializing above the council chamber's central table. Commander Jeffrey Kennedy's weathered face appeared, his eyes sharp and calculating as he surveyed the alien delegates. "Counselor Vortis," Kennedy acknowledged, his voice carrying the weight of past victories. "I never thought I'd see the day when you'd reach out to us for help." Vortis's multiple arms twitched in agitation. Circumstances have changed, Commander. The Zarchan Imperium threatens us all. We need your strategic expertise. Kennedy's lips curved into a humorless smile. And what makes you think we'd be interested in an alliance? Because you've seen the data, Vortis replied. You know what we're up against. This isn't about old grudges anymore. It's about survival. The human commander leaned back, his expression unreadable. You're right about that. But let's make one thing clear. If we do this, we're equal partners. No more treating humanity as a subordinate species. Murmurs of protest rose from the assembled counselors, but Vortis silenced them with a gesture. Agreed. We need your full capabilities if we're to have any hope of victory. As the details of the alliance were hammered out, alarms blared throughout the station. A Xerixian officer burst into the chamber, scales flushed with exertion. Counselor, Admiral Zala's forces have launched multiple attacks across Imperial space. Vortis's expression hardened. She seeks to cripple our ability to coordinate. Commander Kennedy, we need... Already on it, Kennedy interrupted, his fingers dancing across an off-screen console. I'm deploying our infiltration units to take out Zala's command ship. Give us 12 hours. True to his word, Kennedy's strike team executed a daring assault on Zala's flagship. The hangar bay erupted in chaos as cloaked human operatives materialized, their advanced weaponry cutting through Imperial defenses. Zala snarled orders from the bridge, her scaled fists clenching as reports of the human advance flooded in. How did they breach our shields? Impossible! But the impossible had become reality. Within hours, Zala found herself in restraints, glaring at her captors as Kennedy's hologram flickered before her. A valiant effort, Admiral, Kennedy said, his tone almost respectful, but ultimately futile. As Zala was led away, Zorax approached Vortis, his expression grave. Counselor, I know this may sound mad, but we need to free her. Vortis's eye stalks swiveled in disbelief. After everything she's done? Zorax nodded firmly. Her strategic mind is unparalleled. Against the Zarchan, we'll need every advantage we can get. Reluctantly, Vortis agreed, though he insisted on keeping Zala under constant surveillance. In a secure briefing room, the unlikely War Council convened. Vortis, Kennedy, Zorax, and a tightly controlled Zala pored over tactical displays showing the Zarchan's inexorable advance. We need to focus our defense on key population centers, Kennedy argued, highlighting several star systems. We can't hope to hold everything. Zala's tail lashed in agitation. And leave our outer colonies to die? Unacceptable. Would you rather lose everything? Zorax countered. We must be pragmatic. As they debated strategy, a young human scientist burst into the room, her eyes wild with excitement. Commander, we've had a breakthrough with the quantum slipstream drive. Kennedy's eyebrows shot up. Explain, Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen activated a holographic model showing complex energy matrices. By reverse engineering the Zarchan's drive signatures, we think we can modify our existing technology to match their capabilities. Hope flickered in Vortis's compound eyes. How long until we can implement this? Weeks, maybe days if we push it, Dr. Chen replied. But we'll need every available resource. As the council threw themselves into preparations, none of them noticed the shadowy figure observing from a hidden alcove. Zuldak, the Brunali officer who had escaped Zala's failed coup, smiled coldly. Empress Zyrax will be most interested in this, he whispered, activating a cloaked transmitter. And once Dr. Chen is eliminated, their efforts will be for nothing. The pieces were set. As the fragile alliance raced against time, the Zarchan's unstoppable warships continued their march across the stars, leaving only silence in their wake. The cloaked figure of Zuldak slipped away from the council chamber, his encrypted transmission to Empress Zyrax complete. Within hours, his carefully laid plans bore fruit. Dr. Chen hurried through the dimly lit corridors of the research facility, her mind racing with possibilities for the quantum slipstream breakthrough. She failed to notice the shadow detaching itself from an alcove behind her. Vreeze, the shape-shifting Xerixian infiltrator, moved with liquid grace. One moment he appeared as a nondescript maintenance worker. The next, he was upon Dr. Chen, a thin molecular blade materializing in his hand. The attack was swift and silent. Dr. Chen's eyes widened in shock as the blade found its mark. She crumpled to the ground, her groundbreaking research dying with her. Alarms blared throughout the station as security forces converged on the scene, but Vries was already gone, leaving no trace of his presence. In the war room, the news hit like a physical blow. Kennedy thumped his hand on the table, his face a mask of barely held back fury. "Damn it! We were so close!" Vortis's eye stalks drooped in despair. Without Dr. Chen, our efforts to counter the Zarchon drives are set back by months, at least. Zala's scaled fingers drummed an agitated rhythm on the table's surface. Months we don't have. Their fleets draw closer by the day. Kennedy paced the room, his mind working furiously. He stopped abruptly, turning to face the assembled alien leaders. "We need to pool our resources, all of them." Vortis tilted his head quizzically. "Explain, Commander." "A merged think tank," Kennedy said, his eyes glinting with commitment. "Human and Imperial scientists working side by side, sharing everything we know." Zala bristled. "You expect us to hand over our most closely guarded secrets?" Kennedy met her gaze unflinchingly. "If we want to survive, yes, we need full access to your data on advanced energy manipulation. In return, you'll get complete access to our Prometheus research." A tense silence fell over the room. Vortis and Zala exchanged meaningful looks, years of ingrained suspicion warring with the stark reality of their situation. Finally, Vortis spoke. "We have no choice. For the sake of all our peoples, we agree to your terms." As the Alliance scrambled to implement this new strategy, the Zarchon Imperium struck. Multiple fronts erupted into fierce combat as the invaders pushed relentlessly inward. Zorax, his hologram flickering with static from a recent engagement, addressed the War Council. "We can't hold them back on all fronts. We need to consolidate our forces." "You're suggesting we abandon entire systems?" Zala asked, her voice sharp. Zorax nodded grimly. "We funnel everything we have into fortifying Sol. It's our best chance for a final stand." Before anyone could respond, a priority alert flashed across the main display. Kennedy's face hardened as he read the incoming data. "We've got reports of Imperial factions defecting to the Zarchon." Vortis reeled back as if struck. "Impossible! No one would side with those monsters!" "Fear makes cowards of us all," Zala muttered, her tail lashing in agitation. As the council debated their dwindling options, Kennedy's mind drifted to another time, another seemingly hopeless battle. The siege of Luna raged around him. Kennedy crouched behind a makeshift barricade, the acrid smell of ozone filling his nostrils as energy weapons discharged overhead. His ragtag militia fought with desperate creativity, unleashing swarms of killer drones and activating electromagnetic pulse mines to disrupt the Imperial assault. "Commander!" a young soldier shouted over the din of battle. "We've got that captured railgun operational." Kennedy grinned fiercely. "Then let's give our guests a proper Luna welcome." The tide of battle shifted as the repurposed Imperial weapon tore through the invading forces. Kennedy allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction before focusing on the next crisis. Back in the present, Vortis's voice snapped Kennedy back to reality. "I have an idea. It's a long shot, but it might be our only hope." "We're all ears," Kennedy said. Vortis activated a holographic star chart. The Ven X3, an ancient species, masters of gravitic technology. If we could persuade them to join our cause— "Why would they help us?" Zala interrupted. "The Vengxri have remained isolated for millennia." Kennedy leaned forward, studying the chart intently. "Leave that to me. Set up the meeting." Days later, Kennedy stood before the Vengxri Council, their elongated forms shimmering with terrifying energy. He spoke of the Zarchon threat, painting a vivid picture of the doom that awaited all life if they remained unchecked. The lead Ven X-ray regarded Kennedy with unblinking, multifaceted eyes. "Your argument is compelling, human. But what do you offer in return for our aid?" Kennedy hesitated for a fraction of a second before replying. "Access to human genetic material for your experiments." A ripple of excitement passed through the Ven X-ray. Agreed. But know this, Commander Kennedy. The consequences of this bargain may be more far-reaching than you imagine. As Kennedy left the chamber, the weight of his decision pressed heavily upon him. But there was no time for second-guessing. The merged scientific coalition worked feverishly, fueled by the influx of X-ray knowledge. Just as they achieved a breakthrough in stable quantum slipstream fields, the Zarchon struck at the heart of the alliance. The Sol system erupted into chaos as the invaders launched an overwhelming assault. Aboard her flagship, Admiral Zala barked orders as Zarchon boarding parties swarmed the vessel. She fought with savage grace, her natural weapons a blur of motion. But even Zala's legendary prowess had its limits. A Zarchon energy blast caught her squarely in the chest. As she fell, Zorax rushed to her side, cradling her broken form. "Zorax!" Zala gasped, her eyes growing dim. "I was wrong about the humans. They're warriors. They fight with honor." Zorax leaned closer, his mandibles quivering with emotion. "Save your strength, Admiral." Zala gripped his arm with surprising force. "Promise me. Find peace with Kennedy and his people. When this is over, we must forge a new path. Together." As the light faded from Zala's eyes, Zorax felt something within him shift irrevocably. He stood, newfound purpose hardening his features. Over Earth, the Allied fleets made their desperate stand. Human and Imperial ships, newly equipped with quantum slipstream drives, danced through space in impossible maneuvers. For the first time, the Zarchon armada faltered. Kennedy's voice crackled over the comm channels. "This is our chance. All ships, converge on the Zarchon command vessel. We take out Empress Zyrax here and now." As boarding shuttles launched towards the massive Zarchon ship, Kennedy allowed himself a grim smile. The real battle was just beginning. Kennedy's shuttle punched through the Zarchon command vessel's shields, a precision strike made possible by the new quantum slipstream drive. The hull breach sealed behind them as the boarding team deployed, weapons at the ready. "Fan out," Kennedy ordered, his voice low and steady. "Remember, we're here for Zyrax. Everything else is secondary." The corridors of the alien ship pulsed with an eerie bioluminescence. Kennedy's team moved with practiced efficiency, neutralizing Zarchon defenders with ruthless precision. Energy weapons discharged, filling the air with the acrid scent of ozone and burned flesh. They found Empress Zyrax on the bridge, her towering form radiating cold fury. "You dare invade my sanctum?" she hissed, her voice like grinding metal. Kennedy raised his weapon. "It's over, Zyrax. Surrender or die." The Empress lunged forward with impossible speed, but Kennedy was ready. He sidestepped, firing a barrage of concentrated plasma bolts. Zyrax stumbled, her exoskeleton smoking from multiple impacts. "Now!" Kennedy shouted. His team converged, deploying stasis fields that immobilized the Zarchon leader. As Zyrax's struggles weakened, Kennedy allowed himself a grim nod of satisfaction. "Package secured," he reported over the comm. "Initiate extraction." Back aboard the Allied flagship, Vortis awaited their arrival. His eye stalks swiveled anxiously as Kennedy's team escorted the restrained Zyrax into the secure interrogation chamber. "A bold gambit, Commander," Vortis said, "but now comes the true test." Kennedy's eyes hardened. Let's see what our guest has to say for herself. The interrogation was brutal. Vortis's telepathic probes tore through Zyrax's mental defenses, forcing her to relive her most traumatic experiences. Kennedy watched impassively as the Empress writhed in her restraints, keening in a language beyond human comprehension. "Fascinating," Vortis muttered, his voice strained from the psychic effort. "Their motivations, so alien, yet driven by a desperation we can understand." Zyrax's eyes snapped open, filled with a mixture of hatred and grudging respect. "You seek answers, vermin? Then know this. Your own meddling drew us here." She spat out the revelation. Humanity's quantum slipstream experiments had acted as a beacon, drawing the Zarchon across the intergalactic void. Their empire, fueled by transdimensional energy, had consumed its home galaxy. Now they sought fresh hunting grounds. Kennedy's mind raced with the implications. "We need more," he growled. "How do we stop them?" Zorax burst into the chamber, mandibles clicking with urgency. "Commander, Counselor, we must act quickly. Allow me to facilitate a direct neural upload from Zyrax to our tactical databases." Vortis hesitated. "The risk of contamination is one we must take," Zorax insisted. "Time is not on our side." Kennedy weighed the options, then nodded curtly. "Do it." As Zyrax was connected to the Alliance's systems, alarms suddenly blared. The Empress's eyes gleamed with triumph as she launched a vicious cyber attack, nearly breaching their security protocols before technicians managed to sever the connection. "Cunning to the last," Kennedy muttered, ordering increased security measures. Despite the setback, the extracted data proved invaluable. Alliance engineers pored over Zarchon schematics, developing a prototype weapon to disrupt their slipstream capabilities. The respite was short-lived. Reports flooded in of a Zarchon splinter fleet breaching Sol's outer defenses. "All available ships converge on Earth," Kennedy ordered, his voice tight with controlled urgency. "This is where we make our stand." As Allied forces redeployed to humanity's homeworld, a new player entered the fray. The Veng-3 Armada materialized in a dazzling display of gravitic manipulation, their ships defying conventional physics. "Incredible," Vortis breathed, watching the sensor readouts. "They've honored our bargain." Kennedy nodded grimly, remembering the price paid for this assistance. His genetic code, along with samples from Earth's finest soldiers, now resided in Veng-3 laboratories. The consequences of that exchange remained to be seen. The battle for Sol raged across the system. Human ingenuity and imperial tenacity, bolstered by Veng-3 technology, clashed against the overwhelming might of the Zarchon Armada. Aboard the flagship, Kennedy coordinated the desperate defense. "Boarding teams, you are go for deployment. Hit them with everything we've got." Assault shuttles streaked towards key Zarchon vessels, carrying strike teams and their secret weapon, vibronic pulse charges designed to collapse subspace corridors. As the tide of battle began to shift, Kennedy allowed himself a moment of cautious hope. Yet even as Allied forces pressed their advantage, he couldn't shake the feeling that this victory, if it could be called that, was only the beginning of a far greater conflict. Unknown to the combatants, deep within Veng-3 territory, something unprecedented was taking shape. In hidden birthing chambers, the first fruits of the xenogenesis experiment stirred to life, hybrids born of human and Zarchon genetic material. Their potential remained a mystery, but their very existence promised to reshape the future of the galaxy. The Veng-3 Armada's arrival shifted the battle's momentum. Kennedy watched as their gravity-defying ships danced through space, tearing into Zarchon formations with surgical precision. "Now's our chance," Kennedy barked into the comm. "All strike teams, deploy." Assault shuttles streaked towards key Zarchon vessels, carrying the Alliance's secret weapon. As they breached enemy hulls, Kennedy's voice crackled over the secure channel. "Remember your training. Plant those vibronic pulse charges and get out fast." The effect was immediate and devastating. Subspace corridors collapsed, leaving Zarchon's ships disoriented and vulnerable. Their once cohesive armada fractured into isolated pockets of resistance. "Sir," a young officer called out, "Empress Zyrax's flagship is crippled. We have a clear shot." Kennedy's eyes narrowed. "Boarding parties, move in. We end this now." The assault on Zyrax's ship was brutal. Human commandos fought alongside Imperial shock troops, their unlikely alliance forged in the crucible of desperate survival. Energy weapons discharged in strobing flashes, filling corridors with acrid smoke and the screams of the wounded. Kennedy himself led the final push to the bridge. His armor was scorched and dented, but his eyes burned with unyielding commitment as he faced down Zyrax's elite guard. "Surrender," he growled, plasma rifle leveled at the Zarchon Empress. Zyrax's multifaceted eyes glittered with hatred, but she recognized the futility of further resistance. As restraints were clamped onto her chitinous limbs, a bone-deep tremor shook the ship. "What was that?" Kennedy demanded. Before anyone could respond, a massive fissure tore open in the heart of the Sol system. From its swirling depths emerged a construct of impossible scale and alien geometries, the Venixri birthing matrix. "By the void," Vortis gasped, his voice crackling over the comm. "What have they done?" The answer came in the form of towering figures, materializing across Allied and Zarchon ships alike. Human aggression married to Zarchon physiology, their bodies crackled with transdimensional energy. The Xenogens had awakened. Chaos erupted as these new abominations tore through friend and foe indiscriminately. Kennedy's team barely managed to extract themselves and their royal prisoner, fighting a desperate retreat to their shuttle. As they limped back to the flagship, reports flooded in of the Xenogens' unstoppable advance. The vibronic pulses that had crippled the Zarchon proved useless against these hybrid monstrosities. Aboard the command deck, Kennedy found Vortis hunched over Zorax's broken form. The Imperial General's carapace was shattered, ichor seeping from grievous wounds. "Vortis," Zorax wheezed, mandibles quivering. "You must swear to me. Find peace with the humans. It's our only hope." As Zorax's life ebbed away, he imparted one final secret: the codes to activate the Empire's doomsday weapons. The Scourge-class stellar implosion bombs. Kennedy and Vortis exchanged a look of grim understanding. With the Xenogens overwhelming both fleets, they had run out of options. "Do it," Kennedy nodded. Vortis's appendages danced across the control interface. Distant, uninhabited worlds vanished in cataclysmic explosions, a dire warning of what was to come. Before they could unleash the full might of the Scourge bombs, alarms blared throughout the ship. Raxus, Zala's former protege, had launched a desperate counter-coup. His forces, bolstered by Zarchon remnants, swarmed through the vessel. "We can't let them stop us," Kennedy growled, unholstering his sidearm. "This ends now." Human commandos and Zrixian enforcers stood shoulder to tentacle, repelling Raxus's assault in a hail of plasma fire and energy blasts. But even as they pushed the traitors back, Raxus played his final hand. In the chaos, a strike team, led by Raxus himself, managed to reach the detention block. They freed Empress Zyrax, spiriting her away to parts unknown. "We'll rebuild," Raxus's voice echoed over the ship-wide speakers. "The Zarchon will rise again." With no time to dwell on this setback, Kennedy and Vortis enacted their high-stakes endeavor. The remaining Scourge bombs converged on the Venixri birthing matrix. The detonation was beyond apocalyptic. The unnatural construct shattered, scattering debris and Xenogen bodies across the system. But from the inferno, massive forms emerged, alpha titans that had somehow endured the onslaught. As the dust settled, Kennedy surveyed the devastation. The Sol system lay in ruins. Civilization teetered on the brink of collapse, and the true scope of the threat was only beginning to reveal itself. "Vortis," Kennedy said, his voice heavy with the weight of command. "Get our remaining ships after those titans. We can't let a single one escape." The counselor nodded, already coordinating with what remained of their tattered fleet. Kennedy turned his gaze to the viewport, watching as human vessels streaked off in pursuit of the scattered Xenogen alphas. He knew the real work was just beginning, containing this nightmare they had unleashed and preparing for whatever fresh hell awaited them in the aftermath of their Pyrrhic victory. The dust of battle had barely settled when alarms blared across the command deck. Vortis's eye stalks swiveled towards the main view screen, where a cluster of red dots pulsed ominously. "Xenogen signatures detected," a technician reported, his voice tight with exhaustion. "At least 3 Alpha Titans escaped the detonation." Kennedy's fist tight. "We can't let them roam free. Vortis, what assets do we have left?" The alien counselor's appendages danced across a holographic interface. "Precious few, Commander, but we have no choice. We must contain this threat." As they formulated a plan, a burst of static cut through the air. A familiar voice, thought lost, crackled over the comms. "This is Azura. If anyone can hear me, I'm leading survivors on Outpost Sigma 9. We have intel on Raxus's movements." Kennedy's eyes widened. "Patch her through now!" Azara's face materialized on screen, her features haggard but determined. "Commander, Counselor, Raxus is gathering forces in the Galactic core. We believe Empress Zyrax is with them." Vortis chittered in alarm. If they harness her knowledge— We strike first, Kennedy interjected. But those Titans take priority. Azara, transmit everything you have. We'll coordinate from here. The next hours were a frenzy of activity. Kennedy deployed scout teams to track the Titans, while Vortis fortified what remained of their strongholds. The uneasy alliance between human and alien forces held, forged in the crucible of shared devastation. Days later, they had their opening. Titan 09, a hulking abomination of flesh and metal, had commandeered an abandoned Imperial armory. Kennedy's plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. We teleport directly inside, he explained to his strike team. While Vortis's ships pummel it from orbit, we plant the vibronic pulse in its quantum core. The insertion was seamless, but chaos erupted the moment they materialized. The Titan's body was the armory, its flesh fused with metal and circuitry. Commandos fought through writhing corridors of synthetic muscle, trading fire with hybrid defense systems. Kennedy led the charge, his armor scored and smoking. They reached the pulsing quantum core just as Vortis's barrage intensified. With seconds to spare, they armed the vibronic device. The resulting detonation defied description. Subspace itself seemed to rupture, the Titan's form liquefying into a maelstrom of unraveling genetic material. But as Kennedy's team attempted emergency extraction, they felt reality itself tear around them. The last thing Vortis saw on his monitors was Kennedy, arm outstretched as the quantum maelstrom engulfed him and his entire strike force. Then nothing but static. In the stunned silence that followed, Vortis made a decision. He accessed the protected Vengstri databases, retrieving the gene-coded neural imprint Kennedy had once provided. It wasn't much, but it was a chance, however slim, of one day bringing his ally back. There was no time to mourn. Reports flooded in of Raxus's forces converging on the shattered remains of the Venex rebirthing matrix. Whatever his aim, it had to be stopped. Vortis opened a channel to all remaining Allied ships. This is Counselor Vortis. We face our darkest hour, but we do not face it alone. Prepare for our final offensive. We end this now. As the ragtag fleet assembled, Vortis allowed himself one moment of reflection. Somehow, improbably, he had come to see these humans as true allies. Whatever came next, he would honor Kennedy's sacrifice by seeing this through to the bitter end. The sensors lit up. Raxus's armada loomed ahead, their ships jam-packed with scavenged weaponry. At their center, the twisted remains of the birthing matrix pulsed with ominous energy. Vortis's voice rang out steady and resolute. All ships, engage at will. The void erupted in fire as the final battle began.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.